Well, I think the next thing that we're wanting to talk about here outside of partnerships is really around the team that you have, around hiring, around retaining, around investing in your team. And we've both had conversations. I've got, I think, 5 clients right now that are struggling with hiring, and I'm sure you have probably somewhere in the same range. Everybody. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing around hiring for your clients?
Well, that they can't do it. No, I got a text from a guy yesterday, and it was a report from the Oklahoma City metropolitan area, which I'm sure is not that much different than others on the hiring conditions over the last quarter. And it showed there are 611,000 people working in Oklahoma City metro area that got surveyed anyway. But what was interesting to me was that they had, in the last quarter, hired 98,000 new employees. Then the next column was separations, 117,000. Wow. So it went down, whatever, that's 19,000 over the last quarter.
Do they track the purpose of separation?
Not in the report I saw.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure somebody does. But they were talking about turnover, but the thing that jumped out at me was there are 17,000 fewer working in this booming job market. So
Yeah.
we can speculate. I mean, I have my opinions on why it's hard to hire people right now, but the fact of the matter is that it is hard to hire people.
Yeah.
And I make a couple of points with my clients, kind of a strategy for it, is you have to acknowledge that the market has changed.
It's changed a lot.
It has changed. We've got a mutual client who used to hire, we call it just base labor for what he does, unskilled labor, not highly skilled labor, for $14 an hour. And he's now $18 to $24 an hour.
Yeah.
And he's having trouble keeping guys for that.
Yeah.
One anecdotal thing was when they had that extra bump on the unemployment from the feds.
Yeah.
He hired a guy for, I think, $20 an hour, whatever it was. Anyway, it was the most he'd ever paid for that position. The guy worked 3 days, came in and said, I got to have $21.50. And he said, what? And I'd never done that before, but he took the amount he was getting paid from the government
Yeah.
and divided by 40, and he had $21.50. He was getting paid by the government $21.50 an hour. And my client was paying him 18.
Yeah.
And the guy said, not only that, the government's not withholding taxes.
Yeah.
And you are. And so we couldn't match that, and the guy went home. He'd been there 3 days. So that's one reason. That little bump deal is not there anymore.
Yep.
But there's also a child thing where you get $250 to $350 a child. Yeah. Anyway, in overarching, I don't think it can be denied, the government's been paying people not to work.
Essentially.
And they're maybe backing off that a little bit, but some people have become accustomed to that.
Yeah.
Which I find really hard to understand. But they have become accustomed to that. And then the word's getting around that, hey, people are paying more. We have people walking in and applying and saying, well, you said $22, but I'll take $24. And they're asking for things.
Yeah.
So as employers, you said, what are our discussions about? You have to acknowledge that. And
well, you also have to acknowledge the work from home thing. I know that, sometimes you're hiring a tech, there's not, working from home doesn't really exist. But if you're hiring somebody that's in the office, you're competing with remote jobs. That you're not.
Well, the whole package.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And bonuses, I mean, there are all kinds of things and my initial, I'm old school, but my initial response to somebody coming in and demanding a bunch of stuff is screw you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my initial reaction.
Well, there's
and
a
that's
difference.
Not the
There's a
right,
difference.
That's not the right reaction.
There's a difference in demanding and having a conversation. If someone comes to me having a conversation, hey, I really love working here. I enjoy what's going on and the opportunities that I have to grow and to learn and to challenge myself and do meaningful work. I love our culture. I love our team. I'm recognizing that I'm also being underpaid because the market's changed and I'm getting offers from other companies. Are there any plans or any ways that I can grow in terms of my finances in this company? Because I'd like to. That's a completely different conversation than.
Yeah, I was mostly thinking about people who are showing up in response to ads. Because that's
gotcha.
what I've got mostly going on.
Okay.
And like I said, my first reaction is take it or leave. I mean, and I'm old school, and that's not correct.
Sure.
But we have to acknowledge that.
Yep.
And then something else I think we're going to talk about today too, because it's at the top of the list for most people, is pricing. If your labor costs have gone up 35%, you got to change your prices.
Yep.
You can't. I don't want to get on pricing yet, but you can't absorb it. And I have an article out there called "Hiring in the Post-COVID World," and one of the points I'll make is that the market has changed. Don't be going, I'm not paying $18. I've been, it's changed.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to go with it. The second thing is you've kind of got to look at how you approach attracting people. In the old ads, journeyman electrician, must have 3 years experience, must have these certificates, must be available, must be able to do good math, must be able to track, will be responsible. All these dry things that are about what you want from this person that begin with must have, or what do they call it? It's an advantage if you can do these things. Pay commensurate with experience.
Yeah.
Those used to get responses, but journeyman electrician, for example, can work anywhere.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, threat of firing an electrician is no threat at all, because it can be working, or she can be working at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
That's just the way it is.
You have to just understand where leverage is. It's the same thing
Right.
in marketing, where you used to have leverage as the company in terms of sales because you had all the knowledge and all the information. Right. People couldn't just go and, if you were selling cars, they couldn't just go and look up, what cars are in their area for sale for this amount of money with this many miles, this model, make, trim. But now they can go and look, they can buy the car and have it delivered to their front door.
Right.
They
From
have the
anywhere in
leverage.
world.
If they have the leverage as the customer, because they can get all the knowledge they need to be able to make an educated purchase. Same thing with the hiring. You used to have to go and look at the classifieds. And you used to be able to only find work at certain places. And so the employer had the leverage because they said,
Right.
I'm looking for this person and this person only. You come and apply, I'll interview you, and I'll make the choice. Now, you as an employer are having to figure out how you can get find the leverage in it, but the employee has all the leverage because there's so many job opportunities out there right now.
Well, and that's the point. The second thing is when you write an ad, it needs to be attractive.
Exactly.
And I have an example of that. I don't try to read it, but it's in that article. But I have two real ads. One I took from Indeed, and the other was from a client of mine. And just look at it and see the difference. One has personality. It sounds like,
Yep.
hey, these guys, I would like to work with these guys. And hey, they acknowledge it's tough, but they're saying it. I think one of their phrases is, if you're willing to bet on yourself, we're willing to bet on you too.
Yeah.
What we do is not easy. So it's straight shooter, uses good adjectives,
Yep.
and it increases the possibility of bringing something in. One thing that you said on leverage, leverage employers' power, right? And whether it's the employer in the past using power, or the employees today, or prospective employees using power,
Yeah.
that's a dangerous deal.
It's
guys.
very dangerous.
Because the employers right now who were power brokers and by God, this is how it is, are having a tough time, right?
Yeah.
Because they're having to change. Well, I say to the employees, now an individual may not see this, but this is happening. Employees are saying, we got the power. So what are employers doing? Robots, automation.
Yep.
You go into the kiosks in McDonald's and there are a lot of people there, but there are not as many as would have been there. So finding a way to work persuasion both ways.
Yeah.
And give and take, like you said, negotiations, and having that attitude. But that's not going to affect a lot of people today. But people are buying robots for loading their CNC machines, and you automate things. And maybe that's the way the world's going. We don't need any people anymore. Not
Well,
yet.
we'll always need people. We may not need as many specialists, but we will need generalists that can think critically, that can solve problems, that can create strategies and solutions. I think to your point with leverage and power, it's true. But just as the employers used to have more power and leverage, most employees didn't want to go work for the employers that were using that leverage and that power against the employees that were, require them to work 60-hour weeks and not paying them overtime and, using that power. That's not the place where you wanted to work. you really don't want the employees that are trying to use that power all the time. You want the people who are, while they know they might have the power, they are generous, they're thoughtful, they're kind, they're empathetic, they want you a part of the team, and they want to be a part of the team. Those are the qualities that you're really looking for in an employee and an employer.
Right.
And that are willing to take one for the team to see the bigger picture.
It's a little outside of today's topic, but it's understanding your culture and looking for cultural fits.
Exactly.
And everybody I know is having trouble hiring.
Yeah.
I think without exception. Maybe you're not. I don't know. You've got a pretty good crew. But my point to people is there are good people out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, stellar people that fit your culture, want to work, engaged, want to learn, do all the things that we find. They're still out there. Even though people say you can't hire good people anymore, they are out there. And the real strategy is to find good ones and accumulate them. And we can have interviewing strategies to improve the odds of getting somebody, but a lot of people who look really good, matter of fact, really good at hiring, don't even show up for the first day, right? Yeah. That's happened in the last week.
Yeah.
And so you can improve the odds, but your strategy needs to be accumulate and find and accumulate. And you might have to go through 5 to get one. Maybe you get lucky and get one the first time, but consciously doing the things that make people realize that you appreciate them. And it's not always money. It's
well, I think this is, and what you're saying falls right in line with this, but it can't be something that you only have in place when you need it.
Right.
You have to have a system for hiring, for recognizing talent, for recognizing cultural fits that is available and running all the time. Because right now, when you need it, it's too late. Right. You're hiring right now and it's too
late. Well, that means it needs to be a part of your culture.
It's got to be a part of your culture. It's got to be a part of your business strategy, a part of your operations to always find and know where the talent is and be engaged with them. And that's a difficult thing to do. I'm saying it's a lot easier to say than to execute on, but it's possible. And there's companies that do it very well.
And it's not hard to execute on if you accept it. Old school guys thinking, I have them that are saying, maybe things have changed.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to put up with this. But that's an exceptional person who's willing to introspect, been doing something 40 years one way and realize it's changing.
In a big area for this, that makes it easier to have this system rather than just having high turnover and having a system to go find the talent and bring them in. It's really not the ideal way to run your company, is where you're always hiring 20 people, not necessarily because you're growing so much, but more so because you're turning over so much. Right. Ideally, you want to keep the people, right? And that goes into one of our points.
You want to keep the people that you want to keep.
You want to keep the people you want to keep, but you want to hire people that you want to keep.
Right. And I want people to know, and you know this too, that's not automatic. It doesn't matter what they look like. You can improve the odds by, we have other episodes on how to interview and look for values and things like that. Hire for skill, fire for attitude. But it's not easy to do that.
It's not.
You're always like, are you kidding me?
Well, and that's what I want to talk about, investing in your team. Investing in your team doesn't always look like money, doesn't always look like time off, doesn't always look like great benefits. While those things matter, there are some of the intangibles that most business owners won't think about doing or aren't willing to do. And I think one of the most valuable things you can do for your team as a contractor that not many contractors are doing is create a one-on-one with your team, with each member on your team in a weekly format. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or an hour. Sit down with each member on your team, or if it's not you, a manager doing that with your team. It depends on how big you are. If you've got 50 people, you can't do that, but your managers can do it. But set up a structure where there's a one-on-one with each person on your team, where they feel like they're getting your time. It's similar to your family. They don't want your money. They want you, And if you're showing to your employees that you're willing to give them 15 minutes, that's just their time, where you want to know what their challenges are. You want to know what their problems are, both personal and professional. You want to know what goals they have. And you're actually going to try to help them achieve those, that you're going to give them your advice, your wisdom, so that they can reach those things. That's an investment that will go far beyond just having the health insurance on the team for benefits. Yeah, the benefit matters, but people want to be invested in. They want to feel like they matter to the company. They want to feel like they can grow. And if they're meeting with someone who's at a higher level in a company, has more experience, that's going to be something that they're going to appreciate, and they're going to feel that they're a part of this team that they're invested in.
The difficulty with that is, I agree with everything you're saying, but that comes naturally to some people, and that's very difficult to others.
Absolutely.
And you have to work at it. And one thing, if you want to know where you stand in that regard, there's a book, First Break All the Rules by Buckingham and Kaufman, and they have a list of 12 questions in there. And if you give them to your team, it will tell you how you're doing. You should have a very high score, like 90 or 9 or 10 if you rank it on a 1 to 10. If you're doing well in any places that you're not. And there are questions like, in the last 7 days, somebody's talked to me about my performance. I understand what's clearly expected of me. But these questions are the result of 80,000 interviews by the Gallup organization.
Yeah.
So it's a good place. You can get that. You can email us.
Name of the book again?
It's called First Break All the Rules.
First Break All the Rules.
Yeah.
And I know that you may not be good as the business owner at managing people, at investing in them one-on-one. Find someone who is. If it's your partner, let them do it. If it's a manager that's a people person and is great at these things, find them and make that a part of their role. But it doesn't have to be you. It just needs to be done at some level. We spend the majority of our time working. It's what consumes the best hours of our day. At 8 a.m., we're at work. And to not feel a connection and a purpose and meaningfulness during the best hours of your day, people are going to leave if they don't feel that.
Yeah.